I know it's probably fine November by the time this goes up, but I really wanted to do some sort of recap of what I read in October, because I think this might be the best reading month I've had this year, and this year is by far the best reading year I've had in recent years, so this might be my best reading month ever. So I thought I would just go through the books and talk a bit about it. These are not going to be very explicit reviews, because I just think this might not be the best format for talking about a larger amount of books. I mean, if I had read only 3 or 4, it would be fine, but the whole point is that I've read more, so I'll see how it goes. The reason I read so much was that I was behind on my readings for school, then caught up, and this all happened in the beginning of October. And after that, I had exams for a couple of days, but then I had a couple of days off, so I could just read for myself. And basically that combination turned out to be very fortunate. So I'll just go into them. First one is The Tempest by Shakespeare, which was what kept me from getting through everything, because this edition has the footnotes in the back, and I really needed to understand this well, so I needed the footnotes very much. I mean, I like the cover, but maybe these are not the best editions if you really need to keep up with the footnotes. This also would prevent me from really enjoying this. This could have easily been a 4-star book, but it's just, I kept getting out of the story because I was looking at the footnotes, and it doesn't flow well. I mean, I was reading a couple of pages of Paradise Lost, and at first I was just looking at the footnotes, even though they were on the same page. It really distracted me and got me out of it, so I decided to just leave them aside, and then I enjoyed it a lot more. So I think I will probably have to reread this at some time, because the story is really cool. It's about a group of people who strand on an island. There are a couple of people living on that island already. The plot wasn't really anything special, to be honest. It was the insta-love and all the stereotypical Shakespeare things, and it couldn't really bother me that much. But there were some really nice quotes, and also a lot of puns, if I can believe the footnotes. But of course you don't really get the full experience unless you speak Elizabethan English, which I don't, even though it quite resembles Dutch, which is really funny because it looks a lot more like Dutch than English does. And it's happened more than once that I was looking at the footnotes and thought, oh well, but this is obvious, isn't it, what this means? And then I realized, oh, that's just because this literally is the Dutch word. But what I liked most about this book was the quotes. Basically, some people just had some really good sentences, especially since I read Brave New World this year, and of course the term Brave New World comes from this book, and so it always has like, it's kind of was that moment where you read the title of the work, but then it was with the title of another work. Oh, Brave New World, that has such people in it, and it's just so beautiful. And also, we are such stuff as dreams are made on, and a little life is rounded with a sleep. I gave this 3 stars in the end. But as I said, this is really cool, and I would recommend it. The next one I read was A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. It basically deals with the concept of Southern belles and just the fading Southern belle that existed after this time period, and just the consequences of both the Second World War and the Civil War. So it's set in New Orleans, and it's about 2 sisters who came from a very rich family in the south of America and used to live on a plantation and be those kind of shit. And basically one of the sisters had left quite before and then went to New Orleans and got married, but the other sister stayed there and experience everything crumble around her. And it's basically about how she doesn't deal with this and descends into madness, which is really intriguing. I really like the whole atmosphere this book sets, but that could also quite kind of have been because of the screenplay. But of course, it still says a lot about the play if the adaptation, which it was meant for as it is a play, was so good. I gave this 3 stars in the end, I believe. It might have been a 4 star. It's just between them. I don't really know. I just found it a bit empty or something. I can't really pinpoint what I found wrong with it, because it was really good and the symbolism also was really nice, but maybe it was just a bit too much symbolism, and maybe I just need to get used to plays, because I'm all for the really beautiful descriptions of nature, etc. And of course a play does not have that in the same degree that other works might. Still, I would definitely recommend this. It's also very short, so if that's something that bothers you. Next one is Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, another read for school. I'll come at the non-school reads later, which are only 2, but yeah. So this is also quite short. It's a novella, and it's about colonialism from the perspective of the colonizers. And so it's basically about the journey into Africa. And it's all really mysterious. I really like the atmosphere, but it's of course, it had a very mysterious and dark atmosphere. But when you realize that that's actually due to his fear for the native people, as well as the surroundings, which are new to him, then it gets a bit awful, because he's just a racist, and that's what creates the atmosphere. But it's also, as I said, the environment. So it was very well written. So I will surely read something else by him. But of course, if you just look at it on its own, you can read it from our perspective as a sort of critique on colonialism. And it is also a critique on at least on imperialism, but not exactly for the right reasons, as he argues that it's just too horrible to go there, and that's not really the right reason. But you have to keep in mind that's really racist, so if that really bothers you, then I would not pick this up. I gave that 4 stars, by the way, because the writing was just so good. Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, which can be read as a reaction on Heart of Darkness, because it's focused on colonialism from the perspective of an African tribe. It's set in Africa, obviously, and it circles around the life of Okonkwo, who is a warrior within this tribe, and he is a very angry man, both because of his past and because of his own character, and that basically leads to his downfall in combination with the colonialism, which triggers it as well. And I thought that it was such a well-created story. It consists of 3 parts, and the first one I found so boring, and I don't really know why I disliked it, but I just did. I could not continue reading. It just gave me a headache and bored me to death. And it was only after that I suddenly thought, oh, I'm really enjoying this. And that's, I mean, if it had been like that, I didn't particularly like the writing either, but if it had continued, I mean, it continued very well until the last sentence, basically, and I was tempted to give it 4 stars. But then I remembered how much I hated the first part, and how much I would have put it down if I hadn't had to read it for school. And I thought, well, I'll finish this, but then I'll give it 1 star. So I gave it 3. It's a nice compromise, but I would really recommend this, because it gives you so much insight in just African culture. Yeah, it's really cool. It also gives you a very awful and intriguing, and just it gives you such a touching perspective on colonialism and the awful consequences that had. Of course, I mean most people probably agree that colonialism is such a horrible thing, but this book just grips you, you know? It was so vivid. And And then I got to read for myself, which is always nice. And also I finished one textbook, so I counted that for my Goodreads challenge because I was really proud that I finished 8 books in a month, but I won't mention it here because it's uninteresting and it wasn't a very good textbook. So next one is Paper Towns by John Green. I've done a full-length review on it, actually a rant review, so I won't bother going into this, except for that I want to say that basically it's about Margot, who's annoying and goes missing, and Q, who's obsessed with her, so he goes to look for her. That's the basic premise, and I had so many problems with this, and the last chapters were quite good, but not really, and I gave this 1 star because I just kind of hated it. I think YA just might not really be my thing. Then the next one is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which I finished on Halloween, which was really cool. But basically this is about Eleanor, who gets invited to stay in Hill House for an experiment. And she goes, so they're just chilling at Hill House. There are supposed to happen all these paranormal things and sightings and weird things, and this doctor wants to investigate it. And that's basically why she's invited, because she had some experience someday or something, it doesn't really matter. But this was just so good, because I just loved the character of Eleanor so much, just how she was written. Initially, I really loved her as a person, and she was just drinking coffee in a cafe, and I just really enjoyed the atmosphere and the ambience, and it was just everything I looking for a comfort read. But then the action and the horror started, and even though it wasn't really frightening, it still was so cool, because I don't want to spoil anything, but it plays with a certain literary device in a very extraordinary way. So I would certainly pick this up. This was a 4-star read for me. This was excellent. It was really, really cool. Especially the ending. Oh dear God, the ending. So I messed up the order. But the last one, which I finished just before finishing The Haunting of Hill House, was We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And I had watched the TED Talk before reading this, quite a few months before actually. And I must say that this was only a 3-star read for me, because I found it to attempt to generalize the situation in Nigeria to Western locations, and that's just not true. But I found that in the TED Talk there was made a really nice distinction between Nigeria and America, where she also half lives. So I found the TED Talk really good. I also really liked her attitude, and that's kind of helped me enjoy this book more, because I heard some people saying they found it a bit angrily written, which was really ironic because she talks about angry writing, but I found her attitude so nice and so uplifting actually. And even though I didn't agree with all of her points, because the TED Talk was given in 2012 I believe, and this was written in 2014 if I'm right, and I think feminism has grown so much since that time that when reading it, I had expected all these revelations, but most things were either, oh, this is only applicable to Nigeria, or, oh, yeah, but this is really obvious. There were a few points where I thought, oh yeah, she's right, and oh, I hadn't seen that before, but there were very few actually, and it just didn't really do anything for me. But I still don't think it's a bad essay by any means. It's just not really my writing style either, because I'm more a fan of academic essays, which have a lot of focus on source material. Here it was just, oh, this is my personal experience, or this happened to a friend of mine. And here you can see that feminism is needed. And even though that might work for some people, it didn't work for me. So that was kind of the issue I had with this one. Because of only the 3-star rating, I'm not really tempted to pick up her other essay, which is an email to someone as to how she can raise a daughter a feminist. And I just think that if my library has it, I'll probably read it, but it's so tiny and it's so expensive that I think if it is a disappointment, I'll just be extra disappointed if I spent a lot of money on it. But I'm also kind of intrigued. I managed to read these 7 books and a textbook. I don't think I've ever read this much in a month. So I'm really glad with this. I really feel better when I read a lot, so I might do a TBR for the rest of the year, especially since I'm a bit less busy now. So I can just sort of force myself to read, but I noticed that when I have to read something or have to finish it by a certain date, that I only enjoy it more, which is really strange, and I'm probably the only one. But I might do a TBR video, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, and tell me what you read in October, if you still remember, because it's probably the end of November when this goes up. But yeah, bye.